A horrific anti-Semitic terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, right here in the homeland. This, of course, the third terror attack in just about a week. And yet it appears that, sadly, one of the biggest victims in all of this is the truth. If you're getting your news from the mainstream legacy media, we're going to show you all the lies they told and how awful it is. Plus, Scott Bessent had a great smackdown with Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation. Why do they let Margaret Brennan continue this job? It's great, though, to see her melt away. You're going to love every bit of it. And that thing that we were told by trans activists that never, ever happens, there's like 3 or 4 men who play women's sports in high school athletics. It's not that big a deal. Why are you so worried about it? It never happens. Well, it happened a lot this weekend, over and over and over again. And, well, one CNN anchor tried to lecture a woman lawyer, about this issue, and it went horribly, horribly wrong for her. You're going to see all of that and a whole lot more coming up right now. We're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name's Larry O'Connor. Please, you can call me Larry. Administration has its sleeves rolled up in streamlining monumental moves right now, but it's difficult for them to take your personal finances into account when they're trying to fix the country. No. You have to focus on you. The fact is that in the last 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 30%. See, this is why tens of thousands of Americans are buying gold right now from Birch Gold. Central banks buying gold in large quantities. And we've told you about the Rio reset. The BRICS nations looking to unseat the U.S. dollar as the global reserve. We've warned you about the trend line here. You can find peace of mind in gold. Birch Gold makes it extremely easy to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Or you can also just buy gold to keep in reserve and keep it safely in your home. Just text my name, Larry, to 989898. Birch Gold's going to send you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, only useful information. Remember, Birch Gold, they've got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. Just research it for yourself. Text my name, Larry, Larry, to 989898. Please do it today. Well, just in the last several weeks, we've seen the governor of Pennsylvania, a Jewish American's mansion, firebombed by a radical left-wing anti-Israel nut job. We also saw 2 people murdered at a Jewish event in Washington, D.C. One of them a Christian from Israel, one of them an American Jew, murdered in cold blood. They both happened to work at the Israel embassy. And now, this weekend, we saw a maniac with a makeshift blowtorch, or a flamethrower, and Molotov cocktails, trying to incinerate elderly Jewish people who were merely exercising their free speech to raise attention and awareness of the hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza. This was a horrific terror attack, and the FBI immediately came out and called it just that. Here's the press briefing from Boulder, Colorado.
I'm able to confirm there are 6 victims, ages 67 to 88. All of them have been transported to local hospitals. This attack happened at a regularly scheduled weekly peaceful event. Witnesses are reporting that the subject used a makeshift flamethrower and threw an incendiary device into the crowd. The suspect was heard to yell, "Free Palestine," during the attack. The subject has been identified as Mohammed Sabri Solomon, and he's 45 years old. The FBI is processing the crime scene in the subject vehicle and interviewing key witnesses. We're assisting Boulder Police in providing technical, analytic, and additional forensic resources. As a result of these preliminary facts, it is clear that this is a targeted act of violence, and the FBI is investigating this as an act of terrorism.
All right, so there's the FBI with some pretty important facts. Mohammed Sabri Solomon, targeted attack, regularly scheduled meetings, Molotov cocktails, incendiary devices, screaming "Free Palestine." He also screamed "End the Zionists." Free Palestine, by the way, is the exact same thing that the murderer was shouting when he was apprehended in Washington, D.C., after killing those 2 employees of the Israeli embassy at a Jewish event. That's also, by the way, the same thing that is constantly chanted by all those peaceful protesters on college campuses here in America as those protests are funded by Middle Eastern countries who also fund terrorist organizations like Hamas. So it seems pretty clear exactly what's going on here, right? Well, not if you're the chief of police in Boulder, Colorado. After the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, and the deputy director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, and after members of the Justice Department all took to social media to characterize yesterday's event as an act of terror, this guy, the Boulder chief of police, decided that he was going to be a smartass.
FBI is already calling it a targeted terror attack. Would you also refer to it as a terror attack?
So I've been in contact with our local FBI multiple times. We are in contact with them here. We are not calling it a terror attack at this point. Again, it's way too early to speculate motive. I know there's a lot out there on social media, but I ask people just to give us a little bit of patience while we work through a really complex scene. A lot of witnesses were here. We've taken them to another location to debrief them and interview them. As we do that, I think the picture will become more clear. But it would be irresponsible for me to speculate on motive this early on. We're only a couple hours into this thing.
Yeah, all we know is this guy was speaking with a Middle Eastern accent and throwing Molotov cocktails at a bunch of defenseless, elderly Jewish people who were there to raise awareness for the hostages being held by Hamas, and he was screaming "Free Palestine" and the Zionists. Way too premature for us to leap to any conclusions. Also, listen, I love cops. I respect the badge. I respect law enforcement. God bless y'all, okay? But I do sometimes have to judge a book by its cover. What the hell's going on with this dude? He's the chief of police. He's about to appear at a press conference. He's had a couple of hours to throw himself together, and he decides to go with the jeans and a tucked-in polo shirt with the embroidered badge look. What the hell is that? Also, did you note, again, not to judge a book by the cover, but I sort of fashion myself a quasi-expert in communication style. When I hear certain idiosyncratic vocal tics, it raises a red flag for me. Listen to how he answers the question. Just listen.
We are in contact with our local FBI.
Oh, sorry. Let me start it right here.
Attack? Would you also refer to it as a terror attack?
So I've been in contact with our local FBI.
Yeah, that's it right there. Did you catch it? It's what your teenage daughter does when you ask her a question about whether she's going out with friends tonight and whether there are going to be boys there. So I was going to go out with my friends, and what's the so? Well, you're a chief of police for a major city. I mean, I know it's Boulder and y'all just smoke bongs now. What the hell has happened to Colorado? But that's how you answer when all the eyes of the world are on you at a terror attack here in the homeland of the United States of America with Molotov cocktails. And your answer to a question is, so let me give you that. I'm going to tell you. Tucked in polo shirt with an embroidered badge. Tucked into jeans with a belt. Okay. Meanwhile, CNN decided to take this part of the narrative up. Now, understand something. If I can repeat it again, you just had a dude screaming like a maniac, free Palestine, and throw Molotov cocktails and use a makeshift flamethrower on innocent elderly Jews. This is a terror attack, a racist attack, a hate crime. CNN, though, in most of their coverage yesterday, decided to focus on the real enemy, the FBI, because it's being headed by Kash Patel.
Local authorities are saying one thing, and the FBI is saying something slightly different.
Yeah, that's never a great start. I think that the press conference that we saw, one thing was abundantly clear, is the local authorities, and I'm not sure we got the name of that person who was speaking. He seems to be a chief or somebody in charge there.
Same, yes.
Yeah, he is really very, very careful. And I think that's the right approach at this point. They don't have a clear idea.
Yeah, that's the right approach. That's Andy McCabe, by the way. I always take his advice on proper law enforcement, considering the fact that he pulled search warrants and FISA warrants to spy on an innocent American named Carter Page. He ramped up and basically oversaw the entire Russian collusion hoax. And oh, by the way, he was drummed out of the FBI in shame because he leaked anonymously to the media, but not so anonymously because it was discovered that he was the leaker. But yeah, that's Andy McCabe. By the way, Chief of Police of Boulder, Colorado, this is why we don't put out conflicting statements in law enforcement. If the FBI has already called it a terror attack, you, sir, stepped down and defer to the federal law enforcement authorities. That's how it's supposed to do. They actually supersede your authority there at this moment. But because Mr. Okay, well, so let me tell you what I think about this crime, because he decided to step out there and say, yeah, it would be way premature. He looks like a fool, but he also fuels this crap on CNN. More?
Chief comes out and says, we don't have 2 + 2 = 4 yet. In other words, this is obviously an anti-Semitic attack, and the victims were obviously part of that group. Therefore, we're not calling it terrorism. It adds a lot of it's not good for the community. It's not good for the potentially targeted community. It makes law enforcement look disorganized, and it makes the FBI look so juvenile. Like, why are you getting ahead of the police chief who says, I don't know what this is?
So understand the take here. May I repeat myself one more time? Crazed maniac, makeshift flamethrower, Molotov cocktails, incendiary devices, setting aflame elderly Jewish people who are drawing attention to the hostages held by Hamas. He's screaming, end the Zionists and free Palestine. And according to this CNN law enforcement expert, it's the FBI who looks bad for calling this what it obviously is. They're not analysts. They're not experts. They're partisans. And in live television, while CNN is supposed to be in the business of delivering facts, news, and information to their viewers, what a joke that is, they're not giving you analysis. They're taking sides. They're using this as a political weapon against people that they don't like. And if you're watching CNN, you think that the FBI is crazy and jumping to conclusions, calling it a terrorist attack, instead of actually knowing and hearing the facts, which of course it's a terrorist attack. And I already showed you the FBI field representative there giving the press conference saying, based on everything we know, we are calling this a targeted act of terror. But, oh, by all means, Mr. Polo shirt with an embroidered badge tucked in his blue jeans, who's now the chief of police of Boulder, he supersedes all of that. I wish that were the extent of the atrocious media coverage of this horrific event, but frankly, we're just scratching the surface. Here's how CNN wrote up this story. Check this out. A man reportedly set people on fire. Reportedly. I mean, we've got the charred bodies sitting on the sidewalk, CNN. A man reportedly set people on fire in Boulder, Colorado, leaving multiple individuals injured. The city's police chief said as people gathered for a peaceful pro-Israeli demonstration. Do you see that? Zoom in, Kevin. They put scare quotes around the word peaceful. In other words, CNN couldn't objectively tell you that it was a peaceful demonstration, excuse me. You can't just let that adjective and modifier sit there without some sort of, well, we're not going to go out on a limb and say that it was peaceful. Other people described it as peaceful. So we'll call it a peaceful demonstration, as if any demonstration in favor of Israel can ever actually be peaceful. Are you freaking kidding me? They're the victims here. They're the ones who were burned. Suspect is in custody and police are investigating what FBI officials immediately called a targeted terror attack, though the local authorities said it was way too early to find the attack. All right, and then the man threw bottles that apparently contained flammable liquid that hit the ground, exploded in flames. Multiple law enforcement officials briefed on the investigation told CNN. Oh, and here's the quote from the chief of police. When we arrived, we encountered multiple victims with injuries consistent with burns. Do you see what's left out of here? They've got all the scare quotes around things like peaceful. They do call it a pro-Israeli demonstration, but did you notice one thing left out about the incinerated, burned, charred victims who were lying on the pavement in a pool of their own blood, feeling the agony of being burned? The fact that they're Jewish. The fact that they're Jewish never makes it onto CNN's report. Gee, I wonder why. That no one needs to know about that. You know, we don't want to anger anybody who's taken up residence in the quad at Harvard or at MIT. BBC was no better. BBC was no better. Multiple people are being treated for burn injuries after a man started setting people on fire at a mall in Boulder. Officers say the suspect has been taken into custody and the injuries range from very serious to more minor. A pro-Israeli peaceful demonstration, at least they didn't put scare quotes around peaceful, was underway when the attack happened. The group meets regularly for a walk to remember the hostages taken by Hamas. I'm sorry. Anything more you can tell us about the group? It's just a random group of people. Why do they not identify them as Jewish? Why go? I mean, it's like they're going out of their way to ignore that fact. Well, we don't want anyone to jump to conclusions about the suspect. More from, you're going to love this one from BBC. See the timestamp here? 2:11 is the timestamp on this one. This is one of those scrolling pages where they give you updates as news information comes in, and they put a timestamp on it, which is really useful, okay? At 2:11, we learn that police are examining whether the demonstration was targeted, but have yet to confirm a link, right? So, gosh, we're not sure. The guy screaming "Free Palestine" and "End the Zionists," throwing a Molotov cocktail and screaming in a Middle Eastern accent may or may not have targeted the group that was trying to raise awareness of the hostages. We're not sure. We haven't confirmed a link yet at 2:11. But get this. 8 minutes earlier at 2:03, 8 minutes before that, they've got the Attorney General of Colorado saying, from what we know, this attack appears to be a hate crime, given the group that was targeted. So BBC at 2:03 quotes the Attorney General of Colorado saying, yeah, we're pretty sure this is a targeted hate crime based on everything we know. And then 8 minutes later, they say, yeah, we're not sure. Police have yet to confirm it. All right. All of this pales in comparison to NBC, though. NBC News. You got to twist yourself into a pretzel. You have to contort yourself like you work for Cirque du Soleil or something to write this headline. Gee, how can we describe the Jewish people who every week meet for this peaceful walk to raise awareness to the hostages being held by Hamas? Is there any word that we can use to describe them? Well, they are Jewish. You don't want to say that. You don't want to say that. So let's instead call them advocates for Israeli hostages in Gaza. There. You know, Andrew Breitbart taught me how to write headlines back when I worked for him years ago at the Breitbart sites back in the original days. And he would say, and he learned from Matt Drudge, a master at headline writing. It's like, write the headline and then eliminate every word that is unnecessary. Make it as tight and as pithy as possible. Any word that isn't necessary, eliminate it or find a better way, shorter, more concise way to say it. So, you know, you could have said Jews injured in fire attack in Colorado, although fire attack is kind of a funny way to put it. You know, that would have made a real nice, tight and informative headline that was factual. Jews targeted and injured in terrorist attack in Colorado would have been a really good way to write it. No. NBC News has to come up with how many thesauruses did they break by coming up with this one? They're not Jews. They're advocates for Israeli hostages in Gaza. Honestly, you can't hate these shameless liars enough. Meanwhile, one photojournalist captured the perfect representation of the left in America as of today. Your shirtless maniac terrorist wielding Molotov cocktails to kill the peaceful 88-year-old woman trying to raise awareness because she took never again seriously. But the state of Colorado, they have their priorities in line, baby. Make sure that trans flag is flying proudly on your building, because that's what we really care about. Happy Pride Month, everybody. Meanwhile, MSNBC, we're not going to let them off the hook. Here's how they described the suspect after he was apprehended.
As far as the investigation itself, we're still trying to verify and confirm some video, but it appears to show a significant portion of the incident as it happened. There's an individual that's taken into custody. He's a white male. Whether or not that's the person that police ultimately arrested and will ultimately charge in this crime, a bit of a question at this time, but that's just what we've seen so far.
He's a white male. according to MSNBC, which probably is the reason that they were covering it. You know, white male, Molotov cocktails on innocent Jews. Maybe it's a MAGA thing. Let's stay with it 24/7. Oh, but then they got the sad news. Sorry about that. Not a white male, actually Middle Eastern descent, Egyptian, possibly Arab, and even more so, Bill Maloogian at Fox News got this confirmed little detail. 3 senior DHS sources tell Fox that the Boulder terror suspect is an Egyptian national in the U.S. illegally as a visa overstay. Entered the U.S. during the Biden administration. Mohammed Sabri Solomon arrived at LAX 8/27/22 on a B1, B2 non-immigrant visa. That means you're a tourist. You're here to see Disneyland and Universal Studios. Non-immigrant visa with an authorized stay through February of 23. He overstayed, never left, now an illegal immigrant. Filed some sort of claim, potentially an asylum claim, and on March of 23, under the Biden administration, gave him a work authorization, but that expired March of this year. So here's the timeline as Fox broke it down. Who was president during all of this? August 27th, 2022, entered via LAX as a tourist, just here for Mickey Mouse. A month later, files, we don't know this, potentially seeking asylum, but we don't know that that's what the claim was. February of 23, he was authorized to, his authorization on his tourist visa expired. So now he's an illegal. A month later, the Biden administration gave him a work authorization. Why on earth did they do that? And what kind of vetting and investigation process did they have? And then 2 months ago, that expired too. So he's illegally in the country twice now. And now he decides to kill as many Jews as possible. So MSNBC got it wrong. Not a white male. Turns out Middle Eastern descent. Turns out there's probably a lot there to learn about Mr. Free Palestine and end the Zionists. I'm going to murder Jews, defenseless Jews in Boulder, Colorado, who are octogenarian because they're kind of upset that these hostages are still being held by Hamas. But if you flip over to MSNBC this morning, MSNBC has now corrected the record. No longer claiming that it was a white male who was apprehended. That storyline is gone. But thank God they got Jamie Raskin on board, lunatic Democrat congressman from Maryland, who has decided that the real villain in all of this is gun owners and the Second Amendment.
Across the country, we are still in the midst of a gun violence epidemic. So we need to be acting with due concern for human life. I mean, this is why, of course, we have been fighting for a universal violent criminal background check. We are for a ban on military-style assault weapons in the country. Our lax gun laws are a danger to everybody in America, and that's something that we can act with some legislative determination to turn around. But people have got to lead their lives, and people need to act with courage, but it is the responsibility of government to try to keep everybody safe from random arbitrary violence and bigotry and hate motivated crimes.
And that's why we need to ban guns, because this is a clear indication that we have too many lax gun laws in this country. You can't make this up. If you were parodying these people, you could not make it up. No one would believe your comedic script that you've written. This dirtbag terrorist actually was in the country illegally. He couldn't obtain a firearm legally himself, although Lord knows in a Democrat city, there's plenty of ways to buy an illegal gun from the inner city. But instead, he decided to make his own flamethrower and Molotov cocktails. And here comes Jamie Raskin to the rescue to say, this is why we need to ban guns. Dude, if all of those peaceful protesters trying to raise awareness for the hostages held by Hamas were all packing heat, this would have been over real fast. But Boulder and the state of Colorado was run by Democrats. This rugged Western state that used to be all about American individualism and our freedoms and liberties. Try getting a gun there to protect yourself. The lesson here, Jamie, is not to get rid of guns. The lesson is that every Jew in America should be packing heat to defend themselves, because Jamie Raskin ain't coming to your rescue. CNN, by the way, this morning found out that they had Jamie Raskin claiming that this was a gun control issue. And they said, oh, we can't let MSNBC beat us in the stupid race. So go ahead, quick, get out there. Say something even stupider. And their anchor did just that.
Look, this is the United States of America, where everyone is guaranteed safety, no matter your color, race, your creed. And so, of course, just a sad event as we learn more details and work to learn exactly what unfolded there in Boulder. We are getting more and more details. Please stay with us.
Yeah, we're definitely going to stay with you after that genius take. Yeah, every single American is guaranteed their safety. Well, I'll sleep better tonight knowing that. Especially if you live in the south side of Chicago, or maybe in Baltimore, or in Detroit, or San Francisco, or LA, or DC, or New York, or I don't know. I've run out of cities that I can name off the top of my head, but just all the ones that are run by Democrats right now. Trust me, that guarantee of safety doesn't really play itself out on a regular basis, CNN. She's partly right. Especially if this is a response to Jamie Raskin's call to eliminate the Second Amendment. Because if there's anything that comes close in our country to a guarantee of safety, or maybe even a constitutional right to safety, it would in fact be that Second Amendment. And after the events this weekend and the response of the media and Democrats, even sadly those in law enforcement, I suggest personally that you all investigate that Second Amendment right you have and, well, make your decisions appropriately. Let's take a quick break and let you know about Town Hall VIP memberships. We've got another segment coming up in 30 seconds, so don't go anywhere. Town Hall VIP allows you to access all of our content on the Town Hall sites behind our paywall and with an ad-free experience. That means you get exclusive content just for you, columns, articles, and videos, podcasts, and live streams. Our sites are Town Hall, Hot Air, Red State, PJ Media, Twitchy, and Bearing Arms. And if you use my name at checkout, Larry, you'll get 50% off your Town Hall VIP membership. Thank you so much for supporting what we do at Town Hall. Use my name, Larry, at checkout for 50% off. Thank you. Margaret Brennan is the host of Face the Nation, and she is, a disaster. And she has been a disaster, like this entire year. I mean, every time somebody from the Trump administration goes on her show, whether it's J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or Kristi Noem or, Speaker of the House Johnson has had some pretty good scenes with her. It goes on and on and on. And we often wonder, why do they keep letting these people on the show? Why does the Trump administration keep it in mind? She's such a disaster. I think they secretly are vying for it. It's like this week it was Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. I feel like Scott's please let me at Margaret. I haven't been on in a while. Come on, it's too much fun. And she completely tries to play the gotcha game, and then she, completely, it's a disaster. She just disintegrates before your very eyes, but God bless her. She just keeps coming back for more. Take note of those facial expressions she's so famous for, as she knows she's got the kill shot, the gotcha moment. Now listen to this lengthy exchange where Margaret Brennan keeps trying to propose exactly what a disaster the Trump economic policies are, despite the fact that the numbers don't bear that out at all, whether you're looking at jobs numbers, inflation numbers, wage numbers, import-export numbers, or Wall Street. I mean, those are just a few economic indicators. I'm no genius, but they're all pretty strong right now, and that suggests so far things are going okay. But Margaret Brennan, she's sure she's going to get him. Watch.
You were last year in March, we were trying to gauge what the impact of the standoff with China and with the tariffs on the rest of the world would do for American consumers here at home. At that time, you told us you were going to appoint an affordability czar and council to figure out 5, you said, or 8 areas where there will be some, pain for working class Americans. Where are you anticipating price increases?
Well, thus far, we wanted to make sure that there aren't price increases, Margaret, and thus far there have been no price increases. Everything has been alarmist. That the inflation numbers are actually dropping. We saw the first drop of inflation in 4 years. The inflation numbers last week, they were very the pro-consumer.
Right.
We've
But
seen,
you listen to earnings calls just like we do. You know what Walmart's saying, what Best Buy's saying, and what Target are saying.
but
of what's
Margaret, I
coming.
also know what Home Depot and Amazon are saying. I know what the South China Morning Post wrote within the past 24 hours, that 65% of the tariffs will likely be eaten by the Chinese producers.
All right, so that's look at the look on his face. I was ready for you, and I got you right back, lady. But you saw the attitude, right? Oh, there's a few more minutes of this because she keeps coming back to her notes. Okay, fine, that one crashed and burned. I got another one for you. It's like, you know what Walmart is saying. You know what these people. And he's like, yeah, I also know this, and I know the fact that even China is predicting that they're going to eat the bulk of all of these tariff costs. So what's the point here? So she comes back for more. Watch Bessent. He's so good at this. He is so good at this.
So are there 5 or 8 areas that you have identified, as you said back in March, where American consumers will be able to have lower prices or should be warned of higher prices?
Well, a lot of it's already working its way through the system. So we've seen a substantial decrease in gasoline and energy prices. So that's down 20% year over year. We've seen the food prices go down, these notorious egg prices. Through the good work of President Trump and Secretary Rollins, egg prices have collapsed. So we're seeing more and more. And what we want to do is even that out across all sections of the economy. So inflation has been very tame. Consumer earnings were up 0.8% last month, which is a gigantic increase for 1 month. So real earnings minus low inflation is great for the American people, and that's what we're seeing.
So again, she's like, oh, please predict all of the price increases. What are you anticipating? What are you saying? And he goes, well, actually, so far, instead of predicting what we think is going to happen, which he keeps trying to do, which is funny. I like watching the news for the news. I know, call me crazy. I don't turn on the news to say, okay, tell me what's going to happen 3 months from now. Who does that? You want to know what's happening right now. You want to know what just happened. And maybe some analysis or perspective to sort of make you smarter about the events that are going on today. So you have, some understanding of the events around us. Instead, Margaret Brennan keeps pushing the Treasury Secretary to say, what are you anticipating in the future? What prices are going to go up? And Bessent is like, okay, here's what I do know. Gas prices have gone down to their lowest in like over 4 years. Egg prices, remember egg prices? They're down over 65% now. All of a sudden because of our policies. Inflation has gone down. We're year over year just at 2.1%, I think, which is nothing compared to the 9% we saw under Biden year over year. So instead, he's like, actually, Margaret, before we even get into anticipating price increases, if they come, which necessarily they won't, we've actually been enjoying huge decreases in prices right now, or decreases in the rate of inflation compared to years past. So can we talk about that for a minute? So, all right, there's strike 2. Margaret keeps coming back to the plate, though. God bless her.
But because when you met with the Chinese earlier this month and you went down from the 145% tariff down to about, it's like 30%. 30% is not nothing, that tax on goods coming in here. Retailers are warning of price hikes. Well, when you go back to school shopping, things are going to cost more.
But Margaret, some are and some aren't. Home Depot and Amazon said they're not. And
Home Depot and Amazon aren't where you go for your back to school shopping. When you buy your jeans, when you buy your crayons, when you buy all those things that parents are going to be
I don't know about you, but I do it online at Amazon. This isn't an advertisement for Amazon. And guess where most of the Halloween costumes in America get bought? At Home Depot. So, that's just not right. There's a wide aperture here. Different companies are doing different things. They are making decisions based on their customers, what they think they're able to pass along to their customers, what they want to do to keep their customers. And I was in the investment business for 35 years, Margaret, and I will tell you, earnings calls, they have to give the worst case scenario, because if they haven't and something bad happens, then they'll be sued.
That's right. That's 100% right. By the way, can we just put that in the Hall of Fame? People don't go to Amazon for back to school shopping. Dude, does she have any kids? Does she do any back to school shopping? Does she know anyone who has any kids? Seriously. I mean, Amazon is sort of the go-to place for back to school supplies. It's easy. I mean, again, not an advertisement for Amazon, just like Secretary Bessent, but that may be one of the most moronic things I've ever heard in my life. Also, fun fact from the secretary, I had no idea that Home Depot was a big place for Halloween costumes. Is that really a thing? What are you going as a linoleum floor? Well, I'll look into it. Okay, let's see if Margaret tries again, because this is a disaster so far.
It's not always the worst case. It's the most probable case.
No. They have to give the worst case.
So Walmart, there was just a piece published with the conservative strategist, Karl Rove. I'm not asking about politics because he is a political strategist, but he went in on the math here. And he points out that Walmart has a profit margin of less than 3%. He says, if it does what Mr. Trump says, eat the tariffs, it can't break even. It can't absorb the cost of imported pair of kids' jeans with a 46% tariff on Vietnam, a 37% tariff for Bangladesh, or 32% tariff on sneakers from Indonesia. Other companies are in the same pickle. So should companies cut back on the amount of goods they have on their shelves or just on their profitability?
That's a decision company by company, Margaret. And I had a long discussion with Doug McMillon, the CEO of Walmart, and they're going to do what's right for them.
Before consumers, the reality is there will either be less inventory or things at higher prices or both.
Margaret, when we were here in March, you said there was going to be big inflation. There hasn't been any inflation. Actually, the inflation numbers are the best in 4 years. So why don't we stop trying to say this could happen and wait and see what does happen?
Just trying to gauge for people planning ahead here.
No, she's not trying to gauge for people planning ahead here. She's trying to trap him. She's trying to do a gotcha. She's not trying to get information for you. And she's not trying to get answers to the question. If she was, she wouldn't be arguing all the time. She's trying to win. And she continues to lose. Oh, two other things of note here. Last I checked with the left and with the media, Walmart was the evil empire. Walmart must be destroyed. Walmart is killing our nation. Walmart is exploiting their employees. And Walmart is greedy corporate America. Now suddenly she's saying, oh, they have such small margins to work off of. And Walmart, and whatever the CEO of Walmart says, we're gonna take that as gospel truth, right? And who is the other person she cited as the expert? Karl Rove. Karl Rove, now the economic genius, that up until about a minute and a half ago, because he was a Republican and in the Bush White House, he was evil, Karl Rove. But boy, they just love trotting these out here if there's suddenly tools that they can use to beat up on the Trump White House. Honestly, the shameless liars in the media cannot be tolerated any longer. That's why you come here, thank God. By the way, one more. She wasn't done. She wanted to come back. She wanted to come back for more.
Speaker of the House estimates this is going to add $4 to $5 trillion over the next 10 years. And there's that debt limit increase.
Well, again, Margaret, that's CBO scoring.
That's the Speaker of the House.
No.
He said it last Sunday on this program.
He said that's the CBO scoring.
He said that sounds right.
Let me tell you what's not included in there, what can't be scored. So we're taking in substantial tariff income right now. So their estimates that could be another $2 trillion that we are pushing through savings. So my estimate is that could be up to another $100 billion a year. So over the 10-year window, that could be $1 trillion. President has a prescription drug plan with the pharmaceutical companies that could substantially push down costs for prescription drugs, and that could be another $1 trillion. So there's the 4.
All right. So now, first of all, this whole argument has to do with how the CBO, that's the Congressional Budget Office, scores a bill that affects tax cuts or spending. And what they do is they say, well, this is how much it's cost, which is also, by the way, a ridiculous way to characterize a tax cut. Oh, how much is that tax cut going to cost? In other words, how much is it going to cost the federal government to let you keep your money? No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, expanded child tax credit, and also making permanent the Trump tax cuts from 2017. But they have to say, oh, what does that cost? It's not cost. It doesn't cost you anything for you to keep your money. And they never factor in dynamic scoring for what it means to the economy for you to keep your money. Can I just tell you something? Going all the way back to the Reagan administration, the first major tax cuts in this country in decades, the money that came into the federal treasury boomed. every single time there's a major tax cut and you're allowed to keep your money, the federal government actually ends up making more money than the Congressional Budget Office ever predicts, because you keeping your own money means that you can spend more. It means you can hire people for your small business. It means there's more money flowing in the economy and more money is being spent. And that means more sales taxes. It means more business taxes, and it means more personal income taxes. It always, and I mean always, works out that way, but they always slip into this same fight about dynamic scoring in the Congressional Budget Office. And you just heard the Treasury Secretary say, oh, yeah, sure, the tax cut means $4 trillion here, but we've got, first of all the money going into people's pockets, as I just detailed. Plus, we've got reforms going on with tariffs and income coming from the tariffs. Plus, we've got reforms coming from prescription drugs. And by the way, when we save money and the federal government doesn't spend money, that actually makes our economy stronger, more robust, and that's going to help things out as well. All right. That said, there seemed to be a little discrepancy there at the very beginning of this, having to do with Speaker Johnson. Margaret Brennan says, came on the program and said, this is going to cost $4 trillion, right? Did you see this exchange?
Speaker of the House estimates this is going to add $4 to $5 trillion over the next 10 years. And there's that debt limit increase.
Well, again, Margaret, that's CBO scoring.
That's the Speaker of the House.
No.
He said it last Sunday on this program.
He said that's the CBO scoring.
Okay, so there seems to be a discrepancy over this, a disagreement. I mean, what did the speaker say? The good news is, unlike Margaret Brennan, we actually watch her show. We actually pay attention to the news, and we have the clip of Speaker Johnson on her show. All right. And you just saw Bessent say, well, yeah, the CBO scoring is an estimate of about $4 trillion. Yes, not denying that, but we're saving on this, and we're going to raise money because of the boost to the economy, right? So let's see what Speaker Johnson really said last week about the $4 trillion.
It will eliminate taxes on tips and overtime, put about $50 billion towards the border wall and hiring Border Patrol agents, keep in place existing individual tax rates, create savings accounts for kids with a one-time deposit of $1,000, increase the child tax credit by about $500. The bill on this is estimated to be between $4 and $5 trillion over the next decade. How much do you think this is all going to cost?
Well, that's about the right estimate. But at the same time, we have historic savings for the American people, cuts to government to make it more efficient and effective. And
so there you go. She's the one who quoted the CBO estimate of $4 trillion. And Johnson just said, yeah, that's right. That's the CBO estimate. But then he goes on to say exactly what Scott Bessent just said. We've got savings here. We can go on and on, but she's just so bad. And acts like we can't pull the clip ourselves to see exactly what Speaker Johnson said. All right. But she wasn't done. She had a hell of a day, Margaret Brennan did. She had Rand Paul on, and she was very upset that funding for PBS is on the table, something Rand Paul's been championing for years now.
You had proposed a rescission request, a clawback of about $500 billion from money Congress had already signed off on. We know now that the White House is going to ask Congress this week for some rescissions. Sounds like it's just $9.4 billion, and it's PBS, it's NPR, and it's foreign aid. Is this really the best strategy? And do you think 51 Republican senators are on board with it?
First of all, I will vote for spending cuts. The more, the better. This is very, very small. To put it in perspective, if the deficit this year is $2.2 trillion, if you cut $9 billion, the deficit's going to be $2.191 trillion. It really doesn't materially change the course of the country. We should do it by all means, and it is the low-hanging fruit. This is the money that was pointed out that was being spent for sex change operations in Guatemala, trans opera in Colombia, all this crazy spending. Yes, it should be cut.
Sesame Street.
But I had an amendment about a month. Excuse me?
It's Sesame Street. It's PBS and NPR.
Yeah, and I think, you're right. We'll see if there's the votes to cut it. I don't think we necessarily need government program anymore. We have so many choices on the internet and so many choices on television.
Thank you, Newsbusters, for the clip. You just can't make it up. It's Sesame Street. It's Sesame Street. Sesame Street makes about $35 million a year, not from your tax dollars, not from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, but from its deal that it signed with HBO several years ago. Also, try going to any department store or kid store or toy store and not seeing Sesame Street and Muppet gear and swag and toys that they're selling to you and making tons. And you get nothing out of that, by the way. Please, Sesame Street. Also, Sesame Street and PBS started in 1968 when there were 3 television networks. There's a lot of kids programming on now. I promise. My kids learn to read with Blue's Clues, not Elmo. And by the way, let's check in with Sesame Street and find out what's going on the block now that it's June. And you know what June means? There's your rainbow flag made with Muppet monster arms. On our street, everyone's welcome. Together, let's build a world where every person and family feels loved and respected for who they are. Happy Pride Month. Wait a minute. Who they are? Mommy, Daddy, what does that mean? I mean, everybody is who they are. What do they mean by pride? Oh, well, Sesame Street is trying to educate you on how you can have sex with people of your own sex. Wait, Mommy, Daddy, what's sex? Well, I wasn't going to have this conversation with you, but since Sesame Street brought it up, sure, let's talk about it. After all, you're 4. You should probably be prepared for public school now. Let's talk all about it. Happy Pride Month, Sesame Street. Can't defund them fast enough. But Margaret Brennan, what a day she had. It's Sesame Street. Please, let's talk about Muppets. I can't keep up with the Treasury Secretary. Hey, I said these liars are shameless, so I might as well plug my book. It's a good one, and it's outpacing Jake Tapper right now in the media and politics category at Amazon. I'm not kidding. We were #1 over the weekend, just a couple of months after the release. It's called Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. It's all about the 2024 presidential election, and you better believe there's a ton in here about Joe Biden and the shameless liars and the media and everything they said. But unlike Jake Tapper, I actually name names. So take a look, grab my book. It's available at Amazon, paperback, hardcover, audiobook, and Kindle. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Well, it's June, and that means we're supposed to talk about people who, have physical relationships with, not in the biblical way. Well, okay, in the biblical way, like what they were doing in Sodom, I guess, but you know what I mean. Let's just get right to it. There's a whole lot of trans news. This is the San Francisco Chronicle, and they're featuring a athlete for the state high school championships that goes by the name A.B. Hernandez. It's a dude. A.B. Hernandez was a track athlete competing as a male and, never ranked in the top 3 in any category. But now that A.B. Hernandez puts makeup on, wears eyelashes, and grew his hair long and competes as a woman, well, he's a state champion. But San Francisco Chronicle, well, they wrote a glowing piece. Blow it up here. Trans athlete A.B. Hernandez shared a podium. Let me just pause for a second, because I keep hearing there's no difference. Girls are girls. Women are women. Trans women are women. So if there's no difference, and A.B. Hernandez is, like, by every single possible measure that is important and that society is supposed to care about, A.B. Hernandez is a girl, a young woman, then why does the San Francisco Chronicle have to lead this as trans athlete? Why even use that modifier? That should just be athlete A.B. Hernandez, right? Yeah, see. Even the San Francisco Chronicle knows better. Trans athlete A.B. Hernandez shared a podium in long jump, high jump, and triple jump in the CIF state track and field final Saturday, an image of unity between teen girls. Really? An image of unity? She's a superstar. She's a rock star. She's representing who she is. Well, I think that's a subjective matter of an opinion, but it's interesting. I scoured the San Francisco Chronicle's social media feed for the last several years, and I haven't seen them once do a major feature on another high school female athlete who is characterized as a superstar or a rock star or representing who she is. The only athlete in women's athletics at the high school level the San Francisco Chronicle decided to give this kind of royal special treatment to is the athlete competing in women's athletics who is also a biological male. Now that's weird, isn't it? Meanwhile, One other athlete who did not finish first because she had the unfortunate accident at birth of being born a girl also happens to identify on the queer spectrum. She's the Q in LGBTQ, and she was super excited for her new best girlfriend.
They gave me the medal I deserved. They gave her the medal that she deserved, and sharing the podium was nothing but an honor. As a part of the queer community, like, I want AB Hernandez to know that we all have her back and we all have her support. Although the publicity she's receiving has been pretty negative, I believe she deserves publicity because she is a superstar. She's a rock star. She's representing who she is. And to be up there with her, like, that was amazing for me, honestly. Yeah, I'm really proud of us both.
Now, there were also many young athletes who were angry and upset and disheartened and crushed and heartbroken over the fact that they had worked so hard to try to compete at the state levels in the CIF championships in California, and they were, well, defeated by this guy. They did not get the special Instagram video treatment by the San Francisco Chronicle. They were not quoted. They were not boosted up and promoted the way that young queer nose ring person was. And I guess that's the point, isn't it? Because if anybody was upset, if they did want to talk to the media, if they did want to protest, well, they'd be ostracized. They'd be demonized. And as we learned in the Leah Thomas affair at the college level, let alone at the high school level, they'd actually be told to seek psychological help because they don't want to change clothes next to a fully intact biological male. So that's how it goes when you're in the state of California right now. Didn't Gavin Newsom say that he thought this was unfair and wrong? And yet, as governor of California, he's literally done nothing to stop this from happening. I just want you to know that there are people in California who do understand this issue, who do fight the good fight. One of them is a lawyer. Her name is Jamie Hamill. She's the president of the California Justice Center, and she is speaking out and trying to fight against these policies and fight for the girls of the state of California. CNN made the mistake of having her on, and then they made the bigger mistake of trying to correct her misgendering pronoun use and use terms like female assigned at birth, etc. But Jamie Hamill, she handled this like a rock star. Watch this.
To comply with federal law to accept federal funds.
What would make this fair for her to compete for those who are competing against her? What would that kind of structure in competition look like?
Who is her?
AB.
Okay, AB Hernandez is a male who identifies as a female. What would be fair is to have Hernandez competing in the male category. It is not fair to the females competing to have to compete with a male.
Okay, so in Trump's federal funding threat, is that something, though, that would hurt all student athletes, including athletes who are assigned female at birth?
Would his federal funding threat hurt athletes?
If the money is taken away.
Right. So the law actually says that schools that do not abide Title IX or other federal laws cannot receive federal funds. So that's not Trump's fault. The problem is that the state with AB 1266.
But you understand, Julie, there's two views here on Title IX. So just to be clear, not everyone agrees with you on how you're viewing it. So in that regard, if you were to take away the funding on as it pertains to trans athletes, not everyone agrees with you. I think we just have to be clear about that. If you are taking away the funds for athletes, student athletes in California, isn't that going to hurt all of them?
Taking away federal funds is going to hurt all California kids, which is why the state of California needs to comply with federal law. It's very simple.
So when you dig into the science on trans athletes, what is really clear is that there needs to be a lot more research on a lot more trans athletes to be able to draw better conclusions about the effect of whether gender affirming care actually reduces or eliminates the advantage conferred on an athlete who is genetically male. Would you welcome more research? Is this a situation where more research might help?
I gotta jump in here because first of all, Ms. Havel's expressions are phenomenal in all of this. I don't think she can see, so she's just having to listen to all of this garbage getting spewed at her, and she's reacting in a completely natural way. You can see from her face. But that question from Breonna Keeler here, I swear, I think this was fed to her. I think it was written out for her. She's not talking like a normal human being would talk. Maybe they typed it out and put it on the teleprompter for her. But I mean, everything about this interview, insisting on using the she, her pronouns to describe the man in question, A.B. Hernandez, using terms like, oh, won't this hurt people who were assigned female at birth? Who says that? Who uses language like that? There's something so disingenuous, unnatural, and deceitful about this approach to having an interview. Obviously, by the way, acting as an advocate. But this last question about more research, listen to the language involved. And you tell me, this sounds like a lawyer wrote the question out. Here, let's start it from the beginning and keep an eye on the facial expressions, by the way, from Julie Hamill. It's just brilliant.
It's very simple.
So when you dig into the science on trans athletes, what is really clear is that there needs to be a lot more research on a lot more trans athletes to be able to draw better conclusions about the effect of whether gender affirming care actually reduces or eliminates the advantage conferred on an athlete who is genetically male. Would you welcome more research? Is this a situation where more research might help?
I love that pregnant pause, too. But think about what that, I mean, again, it defies common sense. It goes, honestly, I want to connect the dots to Breonna Keeler's colleague, Jake Tapper, who has just spent the last several weeks pointing out the fact that the media missed this story. They got it wrong. And that story, of course, was what every single sentient human being with eyes and a brain inside their cranium figured out, which was Joe Biden was a mess and had mashed potato for brains. And just like that, every single sentient human being with a brain in their cranium can see, can know. We don't even have to see. We have our, as the left would call it, lived experience that informs us that a person who is genetically male, as Breonna Keeler just helpfully conceded, thank you very much, has a physical advantage when it comes to athletics. Not every boy against every girl. I have no doubt that Serena Williams could kick my ass on the tennis court. That's not the point. It's not every female versus every male. It's competing in a athletic competition, specifically at the highest level, like the state championships, between 17 and 18-year-olds. Of course, there's a genetic advantage and a physical advantage and a hormonal advantage. And the fact that a news anchor even had to propose that question, suggesting, don't we need a lot more research and science to come up? But that said, let's take, I mean, I'll let Julie Hamill answer it because she's brilliant, but I want to jump in here, if I may, Julie. Breonna, okay, you know what? I'll stipulate your point. I'll stipulate your point. Yes, we need more research and we need more science and we need more studies to figure out exactly what kind of advantage, if any, a genetic male has over females in sports. So I've got an idea. While we're conducting that research, while we're testing that out, while we're trying to affirm what all of us know instinctively from, being a human being and living on planet Earth, since you want research, how about we do that? But in the meantime, let's get men out of women's sports until you can show me research that suggests it's no big deal. But do you see what they're doing here? Well, we're going to let all the men in there. We're going to let them compete in women's sports. And then if you try to stop it, if you try to protect women's sports, if you try to protect the safety of girls getting undressed in a locker room next to a fully intact biological male who in most cases are still physically and sexually attracted to girls, while you protest that, we're going to say, no. You're not allowed to have an opinion on this. You're a bigot. You're a transphobe. We're going to keep doing this thing. We're going to keep harming girls. We're going to keep violating their privacy. We're going to keep taking their trophies and their scholarships and their accolades away from them. And we'll just get more research while we do it. Funny how that works. Instead of, hey, I've got an idea. Instead of upending every societal norm and putting girls in vulnerable, unsafe situations, how about you do your research and then get back to us, pal? That said, Breonna Keeler asked the question, so let's let the answer play out.
I absolutely think that more research and more careful and thoughtful discussion is necessary here. Pediatric sex change procedures are very harmful and they cause lifelong damage to children. And this is something that the United States of America needs to examine thoughtfully, and people need to be able to discuss openly without being called bigots and transphobes.
Yeah, totally hear you. There are obviously clear benefits to playing sports, to competing in sports. So when you're looking at an athlete like A.B. Hernandez, what would you have her do so that she can benefit from sporting?
I view A.B. Hernandez as the victim in this situation. I feel for him, and I feel that he has been lied to for his entire life. And it's probably very destabilizing and difficult for him right now to realize that what he's been told is not actually reality. He cannot become a girl. What he can do is compete in the male category.
Okay,
or
let's
if
stick to
CIF
sports. So you say compete in the male category or what?
Or if the state and CIF want to create a separate category for people like A.B. Hernandez, and that's something that they want to do, fine. It is not fair to female athletes who have worked their entire lives for this kind of competition, who also, by the way, cannot speak out for fear of retaliation, which A.B. Hernandez's mother has personally threatened against them. So it's very unfair for our girls and women in California to have to compete with males, have to share facilities with males, and then not be able to speak up about the unfairness because people are going to label them as bigots.
Julie Hamill, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, Julie Hamill, we appreciate it too. She was fantastic. And that's what women, especially Breonna Keeler and other women, have to confront here, is that there are girls, your sisters, are uncomfortable, they feel unsafe, they feel awkward. Think about a 14-year-old girl competing in high school sports, having to disrobe in the same room as an intact biological male that just happens to have long hair and, snap-on fingernails to make him look like a girl. Let me put it bluntly. Your 14-year-old daughter, for the first time in her entire life, will see right in front of her exposed male genitalia against her will, against her consent, and she has no choice. She has to deal with that. And you, her parent, has no choice. And if you speak up, you're a bigot. And of course, the answer will be, well, if you don't like it, then don't participate in sports, which I guess is an okay answer. But it's funny how nobody says that to the teenage boy who is dressing up like a girl. Whatever your position on the transgender issue happens to be, and I am sympathetic to most positions on the dilemma of transgender children and their parents. I mean, I can imagine being a parent of a child and having a pediatrician or school counselor say, well, you either encourage your child to do this or they're going to commit suicide. You decide. It's the most morally reprehensible and manipulative thing I can imagine. So let's extend some grace and sympathy there. If I'm a parent of a child like A.B. Hernandez, and A.B. Hernandez informs me that they believe they were born in the wrong body and God made a mistake, which is a remarkably erroneous statement anyone could ever make. That said, that's the propaganda these people are being fed. So your child comes to you and says, this is who I am. This is how I want to live my life. I understand you got to handle it and deal with it in whatever way you think is best. But can we all agree on one thing? A.B. Hernandez and other children like A.B. Hernandez have a lot they've got to get through. There's a lot going on that isn't just going to be fixed by changing their name and changing their clothes and going to a different bathroom when they have to pee. I'm thinking it's a little more complex than that. And maybe, just maybe, the teenager who is going through all of this ordeal psychologically and physically with the chemicals they're pumping into them, maybe should set competitive athletics to the side for now. Maybe being a state champion in swimming or track shouldn't be your number one priority. Maybe it's time to focus on some more important things that might be going on in your life so that you can work through this thing, because there's a lot going on. I'll just say this. There were 3 women involved in the conversation you just witnessed. Breonna Keeler of CNN, A.B. Hernandez's mom, and Julie Hamill. And I think of the 3, in my opinion, Julie Hamill truly cares about A.B. Hernandez. The other 2, I'm not so sure. By the way, we're told that this is so rare and it hardly ever happens, but it's funny, this weekend happened to be the end of the school year for many places around the country, so there were a lot of state championships. We just focused on A.B. Hernandez in California, but, well, here's the state of Washington, another very liberal blue state.
And Veronica Garcia is your state champion at 2A 400.
Wow, that wasn't even close. Did you notice kind of a difference, though, in the stride of Veronica, the state champion? Notice how Veronica runs compared to the woman trailing in second place. It's almost like they've got different mechanics, different physical attributes, almost like Veronica, well, you guessed it, Veronica's actually biologically a male. Here's what happened on the podium as the second place athlete was awarded her medal, and then Veronica, the state champ, took the podium.
Second place, Lauren Matthews. And first place, your 2025 winner, in a time of 55.70 from East Valley of Spokane, Veronica Garcia.
Did you hear those boos? Can I repeat again? This is very liberal, very Democrat, very blue Washington. Did you also notice that the podium there for second place is empty? You know, the actual top state champion of girls, the person who was actually born a girl and lives as a girl, she did not stand on that podium. She did take this picture afterwards. The real girls 2A 400-meter champion. Her name is Lauren Matthew, and something tells me this is not the last we will hear of Lauren Matthew. Riley Gaines was spending a lot of time over the weekend celebrating her on social media, and I can't wait to hear Lauren's story. That said, our friend Scott Jennings at CNN had a couple of opportunities to explain to Democrats how this issue in particular is ruining their party, not just now, but for many years to come, if they can't get a grip on it.
You said this hasn't been studied enough to know that, look, we've got millions of years of study. Men and women are different, and that's why it's unfair to put boys in girls' sports. We don't need to have any more biological studies. It is fundamentally unfair.
But do you see, genuinely curious, any accommodations that are reasonable? You have a 16-year-old who wants to participate in sports. In your mind, is there any way that that can happen that is fair?
Of course, have the people participate with their own biological sex. Boys in boys sports, girls in girls sports. It's worked for a very long time in this country.
But it's not that simple anymore, Scott. That's where we are. So what do you do when it's not
80% of the country?
But it's not that anymore. So what do you do with the 20%? Do we ignore them?
Yeah,
do we
much.
Look at it?
I mean, it's an 80-20 issue.
Scott, everybody's against it.
And you just said it was a minuscule number.
It's
If
a
it's minuscule,
number.
why do we have to upend?
We don't have to. The reason why I said
Millions
it
of
was
people
a
for a
minuscule
handful.
number, Scott, was because I don't think it's fair that you're scaring people at home thinking
Not
that
scaring.
boys are trying to compete in girls'
They
sport
are.
by the droves and that this is going to
They
take
are.
over and you were scaring people at home. It's just not happening, Scott.
But this
It's
is the
not
biggest,
happening
this
and
is
you're
like the most
exaggerating.
competitive track meet in
Christine,
the
can I
country.
ask you one?
There you go. It's not happening. It's a minuscule number. Scott Jennings is trying, man. It's like, again, I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. I'm like, Scott, stop explaining this to them. Let them continue to dig their own grave. But he had another opportunity, this time actually with the sitting Congresswoman, Debbie Dingell of Michigan. And I mean, they're not listening. So we got that going for us.
Union halls 8 years ago. We need to understand what working men and women want to talk about, which is economics, job security, how much food costs, what the cost of living is every single day. And Donald Trump, he's very good at understanding people's fears and his anxieties, but I haven't seen him do anything that's lowering costs right now. And when I'm home, I'm hearing it.
I'll defend the Democrats. They are for things. Illegal aliens. You're for boys and girls sports. I mean, you are for things. And that's why you have such struggles right now in your party, because you're not for anything that's on the right side of any of the 80-20 issues that are driving this cultural divide in America. I think Westmore's actually a pretty talented communicator. The other person who spoke in South Carolina, Tim Walz, is this special mixture of extreme buffoonery and a mean spirit, which is a toxic brew. He is not the future of the Democratic Party. More is interesting, probably more interesting than some of the radicals you have out there, Crockett, AOC. I mean, those are the true leaders of your party right now, but it'd probably be better off replacing them.
That's not true, and I'm not going to even let you.
That's not true. And here's the thing: what we're not, what Democrats are for.
It is exactly true. Jasmine Crockett is 100% a leader of the party. And I did like that line about Tim Walz, a toxic combination of buffoon and mean spirit. And he's 100% right. Listen, let's just go to the tail of the tape here. We're 4.5 months into the Trump presidency. This should be a time where Democrats are able to really say, see how bad Trump is. We warned you about it. Look how bad the economy is. Look how horrible this is. Look how horrible that is. Look at the chaos. Look at this. Look at that. That's all they've been saying, right? They have nothing that they can stand for other than what Scott Jennings just laid out there for you. You know, they're for Hamas. They're for boys and girls sports. They're for illegal immigration and open borders. But other than that, the only message is Trump is awful. Trump is chaotic. Trump is fascist. Trump is everything. Children are going to die. So they've had that message, and God knows they've had the mainstream media echo that message for 4.5 months. So is the message taking hold? Are the Democrats soaring right now?
How Americans sort of see the parties. Which party is better described as the party with strong leaders? Look at this. Wow. 16% of Americans say Democrats, 40% say that of the Republican Party. Now, overall, no party's doing great. Lots of Americans say neither of these qualities apply to either party. But look at how much worse off the Democrats are. A party that gets things done. Only 19% of Americans say that about the Democrats. 36% say it about the Republicans. In fact, the only place that the Democrats are numerically ahead, party of the middle class. This is basically a tie, though. Yeah. 34% say that of Democrats, 32% say that of Republicans. But this, I think, is the most fascinating. How do partisans talk about their own party? Right? So among Democrats and Democratic leaners, 32% say Democrats are the party with strong leaders. I mean, of their own kind, right? 82% of Republican leaders say that about the GOP. Only 41% of Democrats say they're the party that gets things done of their own kind. And I will just say, 51%, Manu, a majority of Democratic and Democratic leaners say neither party gets the party that gets things done attribute. Imagine that's the project that Democrats are working on.
Yeah, and beyond the issues here, there's some structural problems with the Democrats as well.
There are. And again, this is where we ended up on election night in 2024. This is by county.
Pretty bad stuff. And I did like that last poll where even Democrats are hating on Democrats right now, and they don't see any sort of solution to the trouble. That's why Jasmine Crockett is rising. That's why Tim Walz is rising. And that's why, well, that's why Trump seems to continue to do well, not just with the polls, but with his agenda in Washington, D.C. And the Democrats' position on issues as fundamental as fairness in women's sports and trying to deny the actual reality of what you see with your own two eyes and what you know to be true. Well, that's another reason why they're, well, destined to be a minority party for a while. I keep saying this, and I'll say it over and over again. Every single person who thinks he can be the Democrat nominee for president and beat J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or whoever the Republican candidate is, they have to answer one fundamental question. And I'll throw it out there again. I hope it's going to be a part of a Democrat primary debate in 2028, excuse me. Here's the question. Mr. Buttigieg, Mr. Moore, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Newsom, Mr. Pritzker, answer this question. Can a man get pregnant? If you're a Democrat and you want to win an election, you can't actually answer that question. And as long as that's the case, they're just destined to lose. There it is. We did it. Thank you, guys. Let's get to your super chats. Excuse me. I had a frog in my throat that whole last half hour. What a Monday, though. Angela, $5 super chat. I was just starting chapter 4 of this great new book, Doe Squad. Doe Squad, the Corruption Protocol, in case the author may be listening, when I was alerted to the senseless, heinous attack. Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh, yes, yesterday. Angela, thanks for picking up my book. I don't have a copy of it to show you because it just got released today on paperback, hardcovers, but I'll be getting my own shipment of them at the end of the week, so I'll be able to show it to you, but it's available on Amazon. It's my first novel, and I'm very proud of it. We've already got a lot of 5-star reviews already on Amazon. Doe Squad, the Corruption Protocol. It's loosely based on truth. It's definitely a novel, though, but it's a spy thriller. It's a political thriller, and I think you'll enjoy it. And I'm glad you bought it, Angela. $5 super chat from Angela said, we just started War and Remembrance again, watching the hatred of Jews atrocities, kind of like now, who shows who are actually like Nazis. It's not MAGA. Yeah, I meant to say it in my monologue, but it needs to be said, even though it's obvious. Can you imagine if there was this string of violence that I just detailed for you in that opening segment by people who are directly affiliated with a conservative, Republican, or Trump political entity or political cause? I mean, can you even come? But these stories just, they disappear. It's like nobody's talking about the Free Palestine socialist who murdered 2 innocent people in DC at a Jewish event. And no one's. Do you see anything about the firebombing of the governor of Pennsylvania's house anymore at all? We also had an arrest of a dude who wanted to obtain a gun in Dearborn, Michigan, a Muslim dude, an Arab dude, who wanted to mow down Jewish children at a preschool. That happened over the weekend. And this stuff just sort of disappears. And if they were all for sake, they stopped the presses for a 1-week news cycle to talk about a high school kid who was wearing a MAGA hat and smirking when a crazy American Indian was beating a drum in his face. And they called him a bigot for smirking. He's won plenty of defamation settlements against the networks who did that. But my God, that over a guy beating a drum, they went nuts. And here we've got people bleeding and being burned alive in the streets. And they want it all to go away. It's disgusting. Thank you, Angela. Sorry, you trigger me, Angela. $5 super chat. I'm sorry, I missed the part where a gun was used. As Ratsketter Van Hollen scheduled their margarita meeting yet with this evil, heinous criminal. Oh, yeah, no. Chris Van Hollen has found a new cause. Now that he found out that this Egyptian terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-Jew terrorist is an illegal alien, he is he's Colorado man. And absolutely we're going to have a summit with him, Angela. Thank you for that super chat. You're so sweet. Pride should be for our great POTUS and military. Well, we are. They're doing their pride parades. Muriel Bowser called D.C. the gayest city in America, which, just so you know, I've lived in a lot of gay cities in my life. D.C.'s gay. It's not the gayest. There's a lot of gays. I'm thinking New York, Greenwich Village. I'm thinking Laguna Beach, California. San Francisco, obviously. Provincetown, Massachusetts. I mean, it goes on and on. How dare you, D.C.? Not nearly as gay. Susan Shellett with a €6 chat. Just a quick reminder, please. Why did we invent women's sports again? Thank you. Thank you. Otherwise, we could just have women and men competing all the time. And men would always win. Thank you, Susan.
One more, Larry.
I'm going to be seeing you, Susan, in Amsterdam. I've got in fact, MRC just tweeted it out. You know what? I should do this. Hang on. Why not? Let's give them a quickie here. You guys want to join me? Cruise to Norway. It starts in Amsterdam. Brent Bozell, David Bozell, Kevin Sorbo, Sam Sorbo, Dana Lash, Joe Concha, Michelle Tafoya, Colonel Allen West. There's me, Dan Schneider, Tim Graham, Tim Young. We're all over it. Cruise to Norway, starting in Amsterdam, going to Oslo, going to the fjords. I was hoping to see some Chevys too, but no, it's just going to be fjords. Wait a second. Don't I have a... Oh, that's probably best. I was hoping to see some Chevys, but just fjords. Don't I have a rim shot? Hold on. All right, I thought I had a rim shot. I guess I don't. Anyway, yes, go check out the cruise, and we'll see you in the Netherlands and in Norway as well. All right, and then one more super chat. We got a $5 from Arthur Brogdon. Good job, Larry. I guess I won't kill you today. That is a famous movie reference. Yes, it is. And I'm a little concerned, actually. But thank you for the $5 Rumble chat from Arthur Brogdon. I guess I won't kill you today. Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for buying my books. And thank you for joining us on the cruise at Media Research Center. That's going to be awesome. Do I have anything else, Kevin? Did you have a good weekend, Kevin? You happy, man?
I had a great weekend.
Really? Anything happen that I should know about?
Nope.
My son graduated high school in California. I was out in LA for my son's graduation, and now he's back here in DC with me for a great summer that we're going to have. In fact, I'm going to go head out with him right now. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Oh, wait, I got some media appearances for you tomorrow morning on at 9 a.m. on Mark Halperin's two-way platform. I'll be doing the morning meeting, filling in for Sean Spicer. If you want to check that out, 9 a.m. Eastern. And tomorrow evening, I'll be on The Right Squad on Newsmax. But I'll tell you more about that tomorrow when we do the show. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Thanks for watching. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.